Okay, as I said, there are 4 types of connectivity modes are there, or storage mode. So connectivity mode or storage mode. Okay, how we store the data. In the case of import, the data will get stored into your Power BI desktop itself, right? Right. So import, direct query, and live connection. And one more is the composite mode, which is an hybrid of both import as well as the direct query mode. Okay. Now let us take a look at each and every connectivity modes in detail. So what is import mode? What is import mode? What is happening behind the scene in the case of import mode? So in the case of import mode, what happens is the data gets loaded locally into your Power BI desktop. For example, your data is stored in cloud. Okay, you have a file, let's say you have an Excel file that is there in your cloud, that is on your cloud. And if you connect to that, the Excel file or so, right, it will get imported locally to Power BI desktop. As I have given the demo of Dataverse, there are 2 connectivity modes, right? We have used 2 connectivity mode. One is the import, other one is the direct query mode. The import mode, we will be loading the data from your cloud storage, which is nothing but Microsoft Dataverse, into your Power BI desktop locally. And direct query also I demonstrated. With direct query, what happens whenever you make any changes to your slicer in your report, based on the changes that based on the selections that you made, it will query the data at the source itself. Source is, in this case, it is a Dataverse. Okay. And the next one is the live connection and composite mode. Okay, in the case of import, so this is the one, the most widely used one. This is the default one when we connect to any data sources. Okay, this is the default. Even if you connect to the SQL server, you can see that by default import connectivity mode would have been selected. This is also called as a cached data. Cached data. It is also called as a cached data. Okay. In the case of import mode, what happens is the Power BI pull the data from your data source and load the data inside of your Power BI itself. So in this case, what happens? The data sits inside of your Power BI desktop file itself. When you publish the report, you don't have to publish the data explicitly to the cloud. All you need to just hit this button here. Here you can see the publish button. When you hit this report will get published on cloud. Along with that, the data file for this report will get published automatically behind the scene. We don't have to explicitly publish the data set that are relevant to your report file. Okay. Since the data is, in the case of import mode, the data is available locally, it is super fast because in memory querying is happening, and it is being columnar database, the report performance will be pretty faster. What do you mean by columnar database? How many of you are familiar with columnar database? Anybody has worked on Hadoop system? Hadoop is big data, right? To solve big data problems, they developed a software called Hadoop. Okay, so again, in the case of big data, there is something called NoSQL database. Okay, so in the case of NoSQL database, what they do is they store the data in the form of columns. Each column will be stored separately. Okay, so what happens is when you use import connectivity mode, in the case of voice is slow, Rashmi, how about others? Are you all able to hear me? My voice, is it clear? 1 second, let me just check. Okay, voice is low. 1 second. Let me just check what is the problem. Okay. I think because of settings. Is it okay now? Is it okay now? I think it should be clear now. I think some setting problem. Yes, okay, fine, great. Okay, so this is in the case of import mode, what is happening behind the scene is you have something called X velocity engine. X velocity engine. So this one will get kicked in behind the scene. This is kind of a software. This is the heart of your Power BI desktop. Okay, this is the heart of your, it's an engine. Okay, this is an engine behind the Power BI desktop, Power BI. So this X velocity engine, right? Actually the Power BI leverages this engine. So what this engine does is behind the scene, it converts your table or data into columnar data. And then what happens is the next step is it compresses the data and load the compressed data into memory. Okay, in memory. Load the compressed data in memory. So once you compress the data and if you load it in memory, obviously the memory consumption will also be less. Okay, what are these things? You know, why it has to convert the tabular data into columnar data? So what is an example so anybody have any idea about the columnar database? The HBase, right? And Cassandra. These are the columnar database. Okay. So here it is also called a NoSQL database. The idea here is you don't have to write SQL query. Okay, using a one or two word commands, right? You can execute the commands, you can fetch the data. Okay, and also here they don't want to store the data in multiple tables. In general, if you join multiple tables, it will slow down the performance. That is also the reason why the NoSQL database, especially in the case of huge volume of the data, became very popular. Okay, so HBase, so these are the thing. Okay, so here what happens is the X velocity engine, it converts your Excel data or CSV file data or JSON file data from the tabular format to columnar data. So why it has to convert it to columnar data? The reason is, for example, in the case of tabular data, what happens is you have, let's say, 80 million records are there. 80 million records are there. 80 million records are there. And you have 200 columns are there. Okay. And for your report, let's say you are using only 4 columns. Quarter, and which quarter? Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. And you have something called region column and units sold, and then the sales. Though you have 200 columns in a specific table, all you need is the data from only these 4 columns. What is happening in the case of table or data, row-based data, what happens is, so let's say you have column 1 to up to 200 is there, 200 columns are there. All you need is only these 4 columns. Behind the scene, what happens is it goes and checks whether the first column is QTR, okay, no, and then it skips until it finds these columns in your existing data set. It keeps checking each and every column. It's kind of a scanning each and every column. Okay, and if it is not finding the first column is quarter, and again it has to skip and check. Okay, second column is not a quarter, and then so it has to keep scan, skip and until it finds the quarter, all these 4 columns. The skipping takes longer time, especially if the volume of it is very, very huge. So what they did in the case of X velocity engine, they stored each and every column separately. Like different tables, you store it separately. Each column you store it separately. In that case, what happens? For your query, you need only these 4 columns. So when you query the columns like quarter, region, the quantity, sales, right? It goes directly to these columns. There is no skipping here. There is no need to go and check whether the first column is a quarter or not, right? It simply says, it goes to the respective columns based on the columns that used in your query. It directly goes to the respective columns. And what happens is, for example, within the quarter column, let's say you want to see the Q1 and Q3 data. So only these specific records will be selected here. So you are taking the subset of the data and from the row point of view, and you are doing subsetting from the columns point of view also. So in that case, what happens is the query performance will be pretty faster. Since it accesses the columns directly, the query performance is faster here. Okay. And yeah, the query performance is faster. That is all the reason why the NoSQL databases are gaining a lot of popularity. Okay. So how about other? My voice is not clear. I mean, Divyani also facing the same issue. How about others? I think I changed the settings now. It should be good now. Let me just, sorry. Good that you reminded me. Okay. So, okay, I just, I have to repeat this one. Okay. So recording, somehow I paused it because of the confusion, right? Okay. So this is the one. Okay. And this is premium license. Okay. Premium type of license. Okay. Premium license. And so in that case, premium license, you can schedule it 48 refreshes per day. Okay. And pro and free can schedule it 8 refreshes only per day. So this is one of the limitations. So you will have to perform, you need to keep your target data up to date. For that, you have to schedule the data refresh, and per day you can schedule 8 refreshes per day only. But in the real time, they use a premium license. Okay, in the case of premium license, what they do is you can schedule it maximum 48 refreshes per day. Okay. And again, different refreshing strategies are available. Okay. And okay. So that probably we'll discuss it later. Okay. So, the other thing which you need to keep in your mind is you cannot switch back the import data mode to direct query mode. Okay. And you can use all kind of DAX functions. That is another advantage, but you cannot switch back from import to direct query. Okay, so now we understood what is import behind the scene, what is happening in the case of when you use import connectivity mode, and this is the commonly used one. And behind the scene, what happens is the X velocity engine comes into picture whenever you use import connectivity mode, and it carries out these 3 steps. And the disadvantages, yes, the limitations, right. So, but premium, you don't have to worry about this. And also, when it comes to the file size, each file size should be less than or equal to 1 GB. Per file, it should be less than or equal to 1 GB only. If it is greater than 1 GB, you cannot use it. Per file, it uses, less than or equal to 1 GB. This is the size. When it comes to size, right? File size limit, this is the thing. That too, in the case of pro license and free license, right? This is the limitation, is that if you go for premium license, you can store huge volume of the data, and 8 refreshes per day is possible here. But in the case of premium, 8 refreshes per day, you can do it. And then when it comes to refreshes, from the data point of view, file size point of view, it can be more than 1 GB. Okay, you can store huge volume of data in the case of premium license. But the interview, when they ask you, don't ever tell them that you used a free or pro license. You tell them you used your customer was using premium license only. Okay, most of the enterprise, they use premium license only. Okay. Maybe some report user, they can buy in addition to the premium, right? They might buy this one also. Which one? The pro license. Next one is the direct query. So in the case of direct query, what happens is so it sends the request. Okay, it will query the data from your data source every time. Every time it query your source system file only. 1 second, let me just delete this. Somehow I saved it. Okay. In the case of direct query mode, okay, this is basically an alternative to your import connectivity mode. Here, when you use this storage mode, it will not, the data will not get stored in a Power BI desktop, because it is a direct connection to your source. This is your SQL server. This is your Power BI. When you use the direct connectivity mode, the data will not get stored here locally. Okay, what happens is the Power Query editor generates the SQL query, and then it sends the SQL query to your SQL server, and then the query will get executed here. The output of the query will be sent back to your Power BI desktop. Okay, the data will be queried from the data. So the data will live the place where it is. Okay, we don't want to import the data locally into our Power BI desktop. Okay, so in the case of direct query, what happens? Only the metadata will get loaded here. What do you mean by metadata? Can someone tell me what is metadata? Metadata is nothing but the table name, column names, and the relationship also. Okay, so this information, it gets loaded in the case of direct query mode. So what are the advantages and disadvantages? So the direct query works only with the specific source system. It will not work with different source system files. Okay. It works with these only some set of source system, like what you see here, the SQL Server, Azure SQL Database, and Data Warehouse, SAP, and only these kind of source system, the direct query will work. What are the advantages of direct query? Since the Power BI fire the query in the place where the data exists, right? Here it doesn't require storage space. It requires very less storage. That too to store only the metadata of the tables, whatever you wanted. Okay, and here the other advantage, you don't have to do the data refresh. Since your query is hitting directly the source table, you don't have to refresh the data. Okay, that is also another advantage of using direct query. And the next one, the disadvantage. What are the disadvantages? You cannot use all DAX functions. All the DAX functions, you cannot use it. You cannot use all the DAX functions. You cannot perform all kind of data transformation. You cannot perform all kind of data transformation. And then the direct query is possible for only the few data sources. So these are the disadvantages. Okay. Now the question is, when can I use the import mode and when can I use the direct query mode? Maximum size of data in the premium license, I don't think so any limit. Okay, and again, you have premium itself, different types out there. So most of the customers, they are using the higher version of the premium license. There are no limitations, I guess. Okay. So here the direct query mode, right? So this we discussed about the advantages and disadvantages. The advantages are like you don't have to import the entire data from your source system back to your Power BI system, and you don't need to do data refresh. Okay, and the disadvantages, you cannot use all the DAX functions. You cannot perform the full blown or the complex data transformation. You cannot do it. Okay, and also the other limitation is like, you can work with few source systems. For example, MySQL, the direct query option is not available with MySQL. Okay, so when I say about direct query, right, you need to remember this term. There is something called query folding. What is query folding? This is what your SQL server. This is what your SQL server. This is what your sales database. And here this is your Power BI desktop. Okay. Or what you do is, let's say you are using a visual here, the column chart or something like that. So what happens is here, the Power BI will generate a SQL query and then it will submit the SQL query to your SQL Server database itself. Directly, this query will get fired against this table, and then the output of the data will be sent back to this one. This is what direct query. So we also call this a query folding. Okay, it folds the query. Okay, so for example, in this visual, I'm using the x-axis, for example, regions, different regions. Let's say we operate across 4 different regions, and each region we want to see the total sales, sum of sales. So in this case, whatever north, east, west, south. Okay, sum of sales in each region. What is the total sales we made? What is the total sales? What is the total sales? That is what we needed. But let's say you have 80 million records out there in your fact table. In that case, what will happen is, if you fire a query, it does the aggregation at the source system itself. The output of your query is just 4 records. Sending the 4 records back to your Power BI desktop will not require too much of network resource, and it will not take much time. That is the whole idea of it. Rather than importing the 80 million data locally here, better you fire the query where the data exists, and then the output of the query, send only the output of the query back to your Power BI report. Right. In that case, it is pretty faster. This is also called as a query folding, but there are limitations with the query folding. Query folding will not happen for any moderate or complex data transformation. For example, if you want to split the data from a column, then the query will not be generated. The query folding will not happen. Okay, there are limitations are there with the query folding. You can perform in simple term in the case of direct query connectivity mode. You cannot perform the complex data transformation. Even the moderate complex also, not only basic data transformation, you can do it. For example, if you want to add an index, it is not possible. Okay. So in that kind of situation, better you can write a stored procedure wherein you can implement all your complex business logic and then invoke the stored procedure from your Power BI desktop. That is what we have seen in the past session, how to invoke a stored procedure from your Power BI desktop. We have seen it. Okay. But there are cases, yes, they are using SSIS, right? SSIS or ADF, Azure Data Factory, they are using it. So in this case of SSN ADF Data Factory, we create the ETL pipeline. And then what we do is all kind of data transformation will be done, right? So if you want to do any kind of data transformation, you can do it because of the limitation with the direct query mode. Okay. And then once the data get pre-processed, that data only will be accessing it from our Power BI desktop. It's something like that. Here you have the ETL part, right? This is your source. This is your source, and this is your ETL, and this is your Power BI desktop. And here they will be using SSIS. Okay, you pull the data, the ETL will be done here. They extract the data from here and then transform the data and then load it here. Okay, then load it to this one. This one. But again, loading is here, right? So usually what they do is the SSIS comes here also, right? You have something called staging area. In the staging area, you use the SSIS tool. This is a ETL tool. You can extract the data from, this is where, let's say you have something else called source system. You extract the data into staging using SSIS. And again, from staging, right, you'll be using SSIS to perform the data transformation, everything. And then what you do is if the customer, they have data warehouse, there they'll store this data here. The pre-processed data, they'll be storing it here already. But again, for your reporting requirement, if you want to perform the complex aggregation by joining multiple dimension tables with the fact table. So in that kind of situation, what you do is you either use an SSIS or you will be using the stored procedure at the source system itself because of the limitations. I'll just show you here the limitations. I just go to this place. And I just go to the data model view directly. Look here, the dim customer. I just show you one more time. Look here, get data for you to remember because I have a mix of people here. I just hit this SQL Server connectivity. Okay, direct query. And look here, if you expand this one, you can see the advanced options. Here you can specify the query itself. For example, you want to join multiple tables in your query, you can do it and you can submit the query itself. So what will happen in this case, the query will be sent to your the SQL server and the output of the query will be sent back to your Power BI desktop. Okay, query the data from the source itself. Okay, and what happens is, that only the output of the query will get loaded here. But instead of using this advanced option, if you use direct query mode, what will happen is or if you use the import connectivity mode, what will happen is, for example, if I click on OK here, it will display all the tables. The DIM customer is available in that sales database. You need to select this that specific table, so that that table will get loaded here. For example, if I expand this here, in this database, what all the tables are there, it will show you. Remember, I have used the import connectivity mode, okay? And here, if I select the DIM category, for example, okay? And you can see all the things. When I hit the load, DIM category, I think I did not load it yet. Previously, I did. Yeah, category. Look here, it got imported. Okay. Just for demonstration purpose, I re-imported it again. Look here, the DIM category already, I think I imported. That's the reason why it shows DIM category 2. Look here, it's already there, DIM category here. Okay, the DIM category is a category dimension. It is already there. Okay, this is nothing but dimension table. I have used an import connectivity mode. How do I know what connectivity mode I have used for which table? You need to keep the cursor next to the table name. You can see that the customer dimension, the storage mode, you can see import connectivity mode. Data refreshed when was the last refresh happened? Okay. And when you hover the cursor for the table which I have used the direct connectivity mode, you can see this thing right on the right side. You can see that direct query and SQL Server database. What is the server in which database this table is available? Marketing database, I have used it. But when you see the table at a glance, right, on top of the table, when you see blue colored one, that is nothing but your direct connectivity mode, direct query mode. And if you don't see anything, this is your import connectivity mode. Maybe it's an Excel file or it can be an RDBMS table. Okay, if you don't see any line on top of the table, that is, there we have used the import connectivity mode. Whereas when you see the blue line on top of these tables, right, this is your direct connectivity mode. Okay, but you cannot convert the imported data into direct query mode. Whereas here, for example, if you expand this one, currently I selected DIM customer, you have a properties pane. By default, it would have got collapsed, and you need to click on this to expand this. And if you scroll down here, you will find something called advanced option. If you scroll down here, storage mode. Currently, it is in import mode, and this I've used import, right? Yeah, from import, you cannot switch back to direct query or any other mode. Okay, but when I select the direct query table, query connectivity mode, right, or storage mode table, you can switch back from direct query to import or dual mode. Dual is nothing but the composite mode. So you can convert to import, okay, or you can use it to dual. Okay, it is a combination of both the import as well as the direct query. Got it? So this is what this is how you can switch back the direct query storage to import mode, but import to direct query storage is not possible. Yeah, importantly, for example, if I just go here and okay, I just go to the Power Query Editor. I was talking about the query folding. The sales fact table. One second. This is my own data. Okay. Sales fact is available here. We have something called adventure data that you can use it as part of assignment. Everything is already there. Okay, you don't have to worry. And sales fact, look here. This is what your direct query mode. And in the Power Query editor, if you go here, for example, if I wanted to rename some column or something like that, simple data transformation we do it. I just say I just rename it as sales amount. So what step that I carried out, I renamed the column from sales to sales amount. Okay, and that thing got captured here. What columns that these are the columns I previously removed it, and now I just removed the sales to sales. Like actually, what happened, right? I just renamed it sales amount again. I just did things, okay, because of it shows the same thing here. Or else let me redo it. 1 second. I'm going to undo this one. Okay, here the column name is sales amount only. What I'll do is I'll just double click on it here. I'll make it sales. Earlier, sales amount to sales amount, I renamed it. That was not the right way of doing it. So the actual column name was sales amount. I renamed it to sales. Okay. And this step or action, what I carried out, got captured under the applied steps pane. Okay. Now, if I keep the cursor over this step and right click on it, you will find something called view native query. When you click on this, it will show the query. So now what happened? I just renaming the column is possible. In that case, what happens? The query folding is happening, which is nothing but it generates the query. This query will be sent to your source system SQL server. Okay. And then what happens is the output of the query will be sent back to your Power BI desktop. Okay, there are a lot of limitations are there with direct query mode when it comes to data transformation and when it comes to DAX functions. For example, if I want to, let's assume that this way, okay. For example, I want to merge these two columns. Yeah, merge column option is available. How can you select more than one column? First select one column and then hold your control key and then select another column. This is how you can do multi-selection by holding the control key. You can, for example, if I don't hold my control key and if I select it, all the three columns will not get selected. If you want all these three columns to be selected together, you need to hold the control key and then click on it. So now what I do is I just merge. When you right click on it, you will find something called merge columns. I want to merge these two columns. Don't ask me why you are merging. This is just for demo purpose. I'm doing it. Okay. Yes, merging is possible. This step. Now we carried out the merge step, and just beneath the apply steps, you can merge columns. And here you see the first three letters are your the location name, and remaining letters are like your remaining things are right like your city name. Sorry, location key and customer ID. Okay, this is a location key, customer ID. Okay, and now what happens when I keep the cursor? For this thing, right? If I let me do one thing, I just unselect it. If I keep the cursor over here and right click on it, still the query folding is happening because the view native query option is still available. Which means this query will be sent to your source system. It queries the source, the data from the source itself. Okay, I have another requirement. Let's say in your given data set, you have both the location key and then the customer key got stored in a single column. You need to split it. You need to keep the location key separately in a separate column and then customer ID in a separate column. So in that case, what you need to keep the cursor over here, right click on it, and you have something called split option, split column by delimiter. So the delimiter is space. Okay, I just click on OK. between the location key and the customer key, space is there, right? So look here, it has some limitation. This step results in a query that is not supported in direct query mode. This is not supported in direct query mode. Okay, now what I do is I just go and select this one, change the type, and look here, the view native query got disabled, which means the query folding is not happening for this action. Or for this step, it is not happening because there is a limitation with direct query mode. You cannot do the splitting. Okay, so in this, because of limitations with direct query mode, right? Even for small things, you will get warning message, something like that. You can, this specific step you cannot do it with the direct query. For example, if you want to create an index, that is not possible. That kind of solution, you can go and do all the transformation. For example, if you want to split it, you can use substring also in your SQL query, and what are the columns that you need it, you specify it in the query, or put it in a stored procedure, you can invoke it. But remember one thing very clearly: if the source system table or table size is very huge, very huge, then you can go for direct query mode. Okay, because importing the data will take a lot of time. And again, the Xvelocity engine has to perform the three tasks. One is the converting it from the table or to columnar, and then compress the data and then load the data in memory. It takes a lot of time, with the huge volume of data. First of all, loading the data from your source to your Power BI system itself will take longer time. The volume of the data is very high, then you can go for direct query. The limitations are many, lot of limitations are there. Even you cannot split the values from a column. Okay, renaming a column is fine, but if you wanted to create a new column, custom column or something like that, it will cause some problem. That kind of situation, better you can write a stored procedure at the source system, or you can submit as SQL query directly to your Power BI desktop. Let's say in your SQL query, you are joining 4 to 6 tables. You do single left after join, right after join, and then you do group by having count of star greater than something like that. So that query you can submit it directly from there. The output of the query will get displayed here. With that, you can do further analysis to overcome this limitations of direct query mode. But when you submit a query via your Power BI desktop, the same thing, the query will be sent directly to your source system. But the same query related transform you cannot do it. That is what I'm trying to say. Now you understood where to check whether query folding is happening or not. You need to keep the cursor over the steps and then right click on it. And even in this case, splitting the column, it is not happening. And here only it is happening. Merging is possible, whereas split is not possible. Okay. And other limitation, you cannot add index to the table. So you have something called index add column. If you go to the add column ribbon, you'll find the index column. You can add the index column. Why do I need to use the index column? Supposing you don't have any primary key column is available. Primary key column is nothing but the column where you are not supposed to have the duplicate values of your keys. For example, you have product key column. The product key column should not have any duplicates values in it. Okay. And also, right, you don't have any product ID column available here. So in that case, what you are doing is you are going to use the index to create some kind of unique column. The column, kind of a primary key column. With index, you can create it. But most of the cases, you will be having the primary key and foreign key relationship. But there are situations you will have to create the primary key column using index column option only. But that one is not possible with direct query mode. It will throw an error or warning. So with this, you're able to understand what is import mode, what is direct query mode. The difference between these two are we discussed, and the other important difference is if the volume of the data is moderate, then you can go for import data. If the data is very huge, then you can go for direct query. If it is more than 8 million or 10 million, records are there in your source system, especially the query which you fire it will return that many number of records, then you can go for direct query. But the limitations are, a lot of limitations are there. Even you can't split the data from a column. In the case of direct query mode, it will throw an error or warning. All right, the next one is a live connection. What is a live connection? Live connection, it is a direct connection to the source system. Like direct query, even the case of live mode, it will have a direct connection with your source system. The data will not be stored in your Power BI desktop. And even in the case of live connection, the charts in your report will query your source system file every time from your Power BI. And other limitation with the limitation with the live connection is it can work only with the SSAS, SQL Server, Analytical Service, Tabular, and then SSAS, multidimensional. Multidimensional, okay. And apart from this, Power BI service. For this, what I did, I have used the PBI DS dataset, Power BI dataset, PBDS, and we discussed what are the limitations with PBDS in detail in the past session. You can watch that video. Okay, and the limitation with live connection, yes, it can work only with these three source system or these three things. Okay, it cannot work with any other thing, and we cannot put tabular and dimensional. If you know SSAS, you know it, right? I have a mix of people. I don't want to overwhelm them now. So tabular is something tabular, multi-dimensional is cube. You know, right? You worked in Crystal Report, right? Crystal Report, do you create cube, Ramya? You have an option to create cube? No. Oh, okay. Then your question is, then you're not aware of that one, right? Do you know the report where we can create, in which report file we can create multi-dimension? Any idea? You worked only with Crystal Report, Ramya? Yes, okay, okay. Then you do not know what is cube. So multi-dimensional, nothing but cube. What is cube? If you are part of a data warehouse, you should be knowing it. What is cube? Just see, in the school time, we have used cube, right? To play, we rotate the cube and then we will be playing it, right? So what we do is we create a cube. In this cube, you make sure that you keep all the dimensions, okay, all the dimensions. So whichever direction you rotate the cube, okay, or right, whichever dimensions that you want to view the data, that is possible. In the case of multi-dimensional tabular, it is not a cube. Okay, this is the cube. And again, in the case of SSAS, what they do is they refresh the cube. They schedule some kind of data refresh for the cube. This has to be scheduled. Okay, and cube. In the case of cube Cognos, you heard about Cognos. It is a reporting tool. Okay, there they create the cube here. Just for your knowledge sake, I'm just telling. See, just knowing what is Power BI alone not sufficient, because Power BI falls under business intelligence space. Business intelligence. Power BI is one of the tool. And the interview time, like, if they ask you, right, what is multi-dimensional, you should be knowing it, right? So what is multi-dimensional? Nothing but cube. That's the reason why I'm telling. So in Cognos, we can create cube. Cognos is a reporting tool, but it is not a data visualization tool. It is not a self-service business intelligence tool. And here, the case of SSAS, also you can create cube like Cognos. Okay. And what is cube? Cube is multi-dimensional. You can slice and dice the data if you have created the cube in any dimension. For example, if I wanted to view the data with the customer dimension by using customer dimension, or I want to slice it, this is your data. For example, this is your data. Okay. If you wanted to slice your data, with the customer, you want to see the region wise, and quarter wise, customer wise sales performance, or region wise, quarter wise, top 5 customers. You want to generate a report. So in this case, you are using customer dimension. Quarter is nothing but date dimension. The region is another dimension. Right? You are using multi-dimensional here. You will be using all the dimension tables, and then you create a cube here. Okay. So that you can do slicing and dicing. You just out of this total data, you can slice this data and you can dice it. Okay. So slicing and dicing, these are the term that is slice and dice. You can slice and dice the data in the case of multidimensional. For that, we'll be using cube. With the advantage of the cube is you can do slicing and dicing the data. Okay. With live connection, you can establish with either SSIS or SSIS or Power BI service. Thank God it is available in Power BI service. The SSIS I don't have. Okay. Yeah, SSIS. I don't, I just uninstall it. Okay, probably later sometime I will show you. Okay, how to establish the live connection with SSIS. For the time being, Power BI service I have shown you how to establish a connection with Power BI data set. Look here, this is what I have shown you, right? If you go to the get data here, and you will find Power BI data set, PBIDS. It is called PBIDS. So in this case, what happens, you cannot work with you cannot mix other type of file with the PBA data sets. In this case, what happens is you are connecting directly to the cloud, and then you are importing the data for any specific report file, right? Any specific report data, you are going to establish a live connection. Okay, so in that case, in the case of live connection, what happens is you will not find this data view. This is already, the previous session I explained it. Ramya, you attended, right, that session? If not, you can watch my video, okay? And then any questions, you let me know, okay? Okay, so this is the one. So in that case, it establishes a live connection. What happens is, in the case of Power BI datasets, the idea of this one is, as a report designer, you don't have to do the data model design. You don't have to do the data pre-processing. It's all done by someone else. Let's say he's a BA architect. He did the data model design, and he did the data transformation, data pre-processing, everything. Only thing is, your job is only in the report canvas. You can go and refer it. Okay, the link between the tables, all the things, has been done by someone else. Okay, and then data transfer also done, data pre-processing, everything has been done by something. But in the case of live connection, when you select here the transform data, if you want to go to the Power Query editor, first of all, this one would have got disabled. Also, you cannot mix any other source file with the PBIDS data set. The idea here is to have better control on your data model. So let's say you have so many tables, other mistakenly when you select something, and when you look at something, mistakenly if you deleted something, the data in your visual will not get filtered correctly. It will show inaccurate value. Okay. So only if I allow you to modify or delete it, you will end up with that kind of issues. Hence, what they do is kind of a read only. In the case of PBIDS, the data model is read only. Just for viewing purpose only, you can see it here for reference. Okay, which data are coming, which column comes from which column, and which all tables that I need to navigate in order to do some kind of aggregation or something like that. Okay, for that you need to look at this one. That's all. But in the case of PBIDS, you don't have to be aware of what is the source system, server name, the login credentials. Everything is pre-wired. Everything is pre-wired. That means it's all already done by someone else. Your job is only go to the Power BI report canvas, go and create the visuals and drag and drop the column into that visuals, and then you do the design. That's all. Okay. So hope you understood what is live connection is all about. Okay, with Power BI service I've explained you, right? So the Power BI data sets. Okay, like the direct query mode. Even in the case of live connection, it will not store a second copy of the data in your memory. or it will not be pushed to your sources, the Power BI server. Okay, the data will be there in the place where the source system is there. We are not going to extract the data from source system and load it in your Power BI. Okay, we are not going to do that mistake. We directly establish a live connection with this one with your Power BI service data or SSAS and SSAS table or multi. So the limitation of the live connection is you cannot use any other sources. Only you can work with this kind of three sources. This type of system only you can establish a live connection. So what are the advantages? There is no size limitation because the data is available on cloud. You don't have to have any size limitation. You don't have to have any storage here. And you can perform the DAX. You can use the DAX functions. Okay, you can use more DAX functions compared to direct query mode. The direct query mode, you can use only certain DAX queries, DAX functions, not all the DAX functions, but here also there are some limitations, but not much. But you cannot, the disadvantage, you cannot perform any data pre-processing. Okay, you will not, you cannot do any data pre-processing. And also you cannot mix data from different sources. If you work with Power BI service, that's it. You need to use only these files. If anything is there in the Power BI service, you'll have to use that only. You cannot mix it with any other system. The next question is, of these three type of connectivity mode or storage mode, import and live connection mode, import, direct and live. Okay, and we have something called dual. It is also called the composite mode. Okay, dual. So in this case, also right, dual is an hybrid of both import as well as the direct. Depends on the situation. It will use the import or direct query mode. So import, direct, and live. Of these four, which one is faster? The import is faster always, and even Microsoft recommends use wherever it is possible the import connectivity mode. I don't know what is wrong with my internet. Am I audible to you all? I can see that my internet connection was unstable. Okay, the import is better. So Microsoft recommends use wherever it is possible use the import connectivity mode, and but again, there is no hard and fast rule. If the volume of the data is too high, then you can go for direct query mode, or direct connectivity mode. And the live connection on a case-to-case basis, you can use it. But the advantage of this one is you can use a lot of DAX functions, but you cannot perform data transformation. That is one disadvantage here. Okay, and but when you compare all these three, let's take a look at only these three. Import is better if the volume of the data is moderate. If the volume of data is very high, then you can go for direct query mode. And live connection and direct query mode. If you want to compare these two, which one is better? Live performance is better. To compare only these two, direct and versus live performance is better compared to your direct query mode. Okay, but overall, we cannot generalize. We cannot say always import is better. We cannot say always direct is better. We cannot say always live is better. Okay, and we have something else called the composite mode. So in the case of composite mode, it will cache the data wherever it is required, or it generates the query. It works in dual mode. Okay, as the name suggests, either it is a direct query mode or the import mode. Now the question is, okay, let's take let's spend some time quickly to take up this question. In which place Power BI desktop data being stored? In which place? In the case of import mode, which place the Power BI desktop data being stored? It is so whether it's import or direct query mode. In the direct query mode, the data will not get loaded here, but still the metadata will get stored here. The Power BI desktop file itself, right? In the import mode, the data is copied to the report itself. In the case of direct query mode, the data will not get copied here because the question was here data, right? Metadata, if they specify, Yes, the direct query mode, it stores the metadata. Even in the case of live connection, it stores the metadata. Now the question is, what is the difference between import and direct mode? We already discussed. And what is composite mode? It is a combination of both import as well as the direct query. Which kind of connectivity mode is faster, direct query or live? If they ask you something, then you can say the live mode. If you plan to take up this certification, PL300, Microsoft, the Power BI data analyst exam, all right? So then you can expect these kind of questions, okay? So this one, the live is faster. Why live is faster compared to direct query? Can someone tell me? Okay, the thing is like SSAS, as I said, multi-dimensional, right? In the case of multi-dimensional, what happens? It's a cube. They store they cache the cube in the memory. In the SSAS itself, they would have cached this multi-dimensional data in the this cube, right? The cube data they would have already cached. Since you are establishing a live connection with SSAS multi-dimensional, in this case, the data is already cached, hence the performance is pretty faster. Next one is the data profiling. Okay, so next we will understand what exactly data profiling is all about. Hope you understood the difference between the four types of storage mode or the connectivity mode. Basically, we are supposed to use this term, the storage mode. Okay, and we discussed about the pros and cons. And on a case-to-case basis, you need to decide which type of connectivity or storage mode that you need to use it. Okay.